All right, so now we're going to get into using the Shapes tool a little bit more in depth. We're going to create a new composition and we're going to begin to animate using the transform property. So to create a new composition, you come in to click on composition, new composition, you label it, shapes name. And for this one, I'm going to change the duration to 15 seconds because I can't make my name moving around interesting for 2 minutes. So again, 0 semicolon, change this to 15 and no additional frames, so it's going to be exactly 15 seconds. You see that there? No frames, 15. Your time for minutes is 0 and 0 hours. So now you see here it is 15 seconds. So I'm going to go to the Shapes tool. I'm going to click on I'm going to make a rounded rectangle. So here we go. There's the start of my T. All right, so now I'm just going to click and kind of make this look a little bit better, hopefully. If you move things in After Effects side to side and up and down and you want them to stay level, hold down Shift. See that I can only move up and down and side to side in a straight line. So I like that T. I'm going to come over here and label that layer. All right, now I'm going to go and make an O. I'm actually going to do it with the rounded rectangle tool as well. Make a good square there. So there's that. Go back in here, make a smaller one, and fill it black so it looks like there is actually a hole there. And then I'm going to hit V and nudge it with my arrow tools till I get it to what I think looks like center. That looks good enough for me. And going to label it as well by hitting enter next to the letters and Tom O. And I'm just going to click and snug it up there. And then for the M, I'm going to do the same thing, rounded rectangle tool. I didn't want to do that. Hit Control Z to undo that. Now you see that it pulls the black layer because the last thing I told it to do in terms of color was to fill it black. So if you click up there and you click this eyedropper and you come over here, it will make sure it's the same color. See that? So another thing I'm going to do to save some time is that I know that an M is basically a mirror. So I'm going to duplicate that other side, hit Control D to duplicate, and then I'm just going to click on that second rectangle and move it over. And I'm probably going to do this, I'm actually going to do the same thing to create the, I guess, V of the M. So Control D there. Now I have that third rectangle. I'm going to make it a little smaller, a little thinner. And I'm just clicking using the selection tool. And if you notice when I get out to the corner there, it gives me the rotation option. Let's see, I don't really like that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see it. I zoomed in by hitting the scroll wheel on my mouse, and I'm using the hand tool by clicking the space bar and then dragging using my mouse as well. So let's grab that, nudge it up a little bit. There we go. I like that much better. And I'm going to duplicate that one as well. Control D to duplicate. And come up to the corner, flip it the other direction. And I can see how that could be working. So let's move this and nudge it just a little bit. Now I have this ugly kind of gap down there at the bottom. What I'm going to do, just again, create another shape to fill that hole. So now I have an M. I have all three letters of my name squared away using just the Shapes tool. Labeling it. Now the power in After Effects comes in the effects, the animation, and those are both controlled by keyframes. And keyframes really are kind of a roadmap in terms of telling After Effects that at this point I want to be in this location. So I'm going to show you that real quick with just the T. Now if you just twirl this down, you see contents and you see transform. Your transform properties, you have 5 of them. You have anchor point, which is this little guy here. Nope, I'll zoom past it. Let's pull back a little bit. This is the anchor point for the T. Right here, this little crosshairs thing. So if you want your T to rotate just in a, like on itself, you have to move that anchor point to where you want. Now I hit Y and it gives me the anchor point adjust tool. And I'm going to try and scroll out and put it right in the center. And you'll see why that's important in just a moment when I go to rotate it. So you have anchor point, which is that guy. You have position, which is your position in the world of After Effects. Now you could take that T and put it over here. That is totally fine. It would work. But you wouldn't see it because it's not in your window here. Scale. Scale is how big or small the item is. Rotation. See there? It rotates around that anchor point. If I move that anchor point out here, it's going to rotate around that anchor point out there. I'm hitting Control Z to get back. And then finally, there's opacity. And opacity is the level of opaqueness of the element. So right now it's at 100% opacity. At 0, it's translucent. You can't see it. So a lot of times I'll fade the elements in as they come on. So first thing I teach, especially if you're doing a typography piece where you want a final product, you want, for example, in this case, a name. I always teach to go and build your wall first. And this is a cheap, probably not professional way of doing this, but it has saved me so many times. So I go ahead and turn on all the keyframes by clicking these little stopwatches. Notice that it puts little diamonds right here. Those are the keyframes. Now, I build this wall and I tell the story that whatever I do inside my castle, and this would be the inside of my castle, is my business. But out here, everything looks pretty. So think about your family at the holidays. What happens inside the household is fine, but on that holiday card or on that family picture, everything looks, whatever you do in here looks a mess. Out here, it looks fine. So I'm going to move the T this direction. I'm going to move it this direction. And I just have no real plan on how I'm going to do this. It's just going to be kind of fun to watch what it does. Now, you see it's got this little line here, and that is the line it's going to follow to get to the points that it goes. So I'm also going to change this opacity. I'm going to have it at 0 and then be at 100% before it gets there. So it's going to fade in. Actually, I'm going to move that a little bit over here so that it fades in as it's moving, because that's a much better look. There we go. And we're going to rotate it. Let's rotate it twice. So over the 15 seconds, it's going to rotate. It's going to move. It's going to become more visible. So there we go. Now notice that in order to play it, I came up here and hit RAM Preview. When you hit RAM Preview, what it does is it uses the RAM on your computer to go ahead and remember the space and the time and all of the elements that are on every pixel on your screen. So you hit RAM Preview, it's going to run through, lock it, and then run RAM on it. This is a pretty simple one, so it's pretty quick. I've had some that take 4 or 5 minutes to run the RAM so you can actually see what you're doing, what it looks like. But if you'll notice that the T will end up in the same original place that it was. So now that T is done, I'm going to close it up, do the same thing with the O. The O's, I did make it a little bit more fun, so I'm going to build my wall. The O's going to come in a little quicker than the T. So again, build that wall so that whatever's over here, so your final product, you know what it's going to look like, which is very important. That O is going to be right there in that final in those final moments. For this one, I'm going to do some pretty specific stuff. I am going to make it look like it's coming from the screen, so I'm going to scale it up and scale it to where it's off the screen. Now when it's off the screen, it's not disappeared, it's just over here outside of your actual view window. So what's going to happen is it's going to come in and look like it's just kind of getting, like it's coming, you're playing kind of a visual trick, like it's going away from you and towards the screen. And also I am going to rotate this, let's go 2.5 times. Now I'm going to hit Control S because it's been a while since I've saved, and in the previous lesson I showed you how to build your save structure. It's pretty easy. And I'm going to hit RAM Preview, and you see that it did all that stuff really fast. Now it's playing it at real time. here we go. See how they're both set to rotate it about 2 times. So they're kind of rotating at the same time, and boom, done. Okay. So that is After Effects in terms of your transform properties, which are anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. That's also keyframes, which are these guys right here. And these are very basic uses of keyframes. There's different things you can do with keyframes. We'll get into that much, much later. And your playhead, your shapes tool, and all of that stuff. So thank you for watching.